All right. Now that Manzi's here, I'm gonna let you take over. He do everything else.
What? That was not the deal. Wow, yeah, I've never used Zoom before. This is interesting.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, I'm so pissed that my fucking
All the time for SBA.
Far so good. I think it allows a lot more people than the other platforms that I know of. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, this
I
is.
don't know.
Yeah, I lost like 100.
There goes Jack.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about Zoom is that considering everything that happened and how all the classes are now taught online, faculty had to kind of scramble to figure out how they're going to do this, and many faculty, myself included, considered different like video teleconferencing apps such as Zoom, and most people went with Zoom. Most faculty, that is. I did not for my classes, only because all faculty were made aware that they would not be reimbursed for any purchases by a mouse. So, but then we got an email the other day saying instructing or strongly encouraging us not to use Zoom because of some sort of bug issue. I don't know.
I was looking into that. So they did made an update. So technically they fixed the bug, so it should be okay for the most part.
Hey, I'm cool with it. The quality's a lot better than what I'm using. Miles, quiet. All right, so I mean, what do you think? I love the topic. Should we get into the topic, or just should we continue on with the kind of checking in? It's nice to to see some faces and hear some voices. I've missed the philosophy club dearly, so I'm glad that Orlando and the team were able to put something together like this. I'm happy about that, for sure. Yeah, very disappointing. We had a lot of big things planned for the second half that now just won't come to fruition, sadly, or at least not for a little while. But here we go. Here we are making the best out of it. So.
Maybe before we start, we should set some ground rules because we do have like 2 people here, so it might be a little difficult for us to say something.
Right.
So, some of us don't have the camera on either, so I was thinking maybe raise your hands on the chat. Maybe
Okay.
maybe type something in the chat to.
If everyone goes to the grid view, if you go to the there's people in the chat. Fuck, never mind. All right.
Hey man, watch the language, bro.
Hey man, this isn't on school grounds, so you shut your mouth.
It's gonna go on the Instagram.
All right, hold on.
Orlando, if you got Adobe Premiere, then you just cut the naughty parts.
I've really gone to every setting possible, and I've enabled it across everywhere. But
it's okay.
We'll take care of it in post-production.
Look, man, I got all looking pretty for you guys. All right, now I can't even show you. All right, I'm a little upset.
Oh man.
I'm just kidding.
Thanks for sure.
My weak ass bedroom right now. No sheets on the bed. Anyway, let's get this shit started.
Okay, well, let's go. But so like I said, if you guys want to go next, you have something to say, maybe just text something in the chat. And
like an exclamation mark.
Yeah, and then you can go ahead and talk next. So,
how am I doing, you ask? Oh, I'm hanging in there. Thanks, guys.
Oh, you're right. You can do that. Okay.
Very kind of you.
Nancy, you're the teacher.
I ask everybody's doing. Now,
I'm doing
single
good.
person in the chat room asked me. Okay, that's fair enough. I'll tell you what I'm perceiving right now.
How are you doing, Manzi?
I feel invisible. I'm doing fine. Not that you really care, but I'm doing fine.
Wow, jeez.
If we care, can you give us extra credit?
Right.
We just started so tense already. Okay. So the topic is perception and experience for humanity. I think we voted on perception the last meeting that we had, but Marcus was talking about doing perhaps human experience, just kind of based off what's going on, like how isolation kind of affects us as humans. Like, does it deprive us of our human essentials, of like our socializing? Like, how does that affect us? And is something like socializing necessary for humans? Is that something that we just need? Or is it something that we've kind of just felt upon? What do you guys think?
I think it's something we definitely need way more than we realize. I mean, we're social creatures by nature. And I mean, even the most introverted person, if left completely alone for long enough, is going to feel the mental and physical effects of being alone. I mean, you can even research the elderly and, you know, retirement homes for that.
Yeah, let me tell you, going off of that, as a human, I also want to think about the kids in this situation. You know, all these young people who are like, I don't know how long. I really hope this lockdown, oh gosh, let's really hope it's gone by the end of May. Okay. But like, let's
Yeah,
say,
right.
for example, that for some reason it gets really bad. And then like we have to be stuck in here until like August or like, God forbid, September, some shit like that. Like, what about like these kids, these young kids that are growing up? They're now that I've never been isolated like that as a kid, like for 10 months or like 3 months straight. Like, I don't know about anyone else, but I've never had that kind of isolation before. Yeah, you have your family, but it's like, how many people are going to go crazy with having their feeling like
Yeah,
family?
after the third month, you get used to it. Don't worry.
You should say something.
I just teasing.
I didn't hear what he said.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Fernando. Were you gonna say something? Yeah.
Does anybody want to argue the counter?
Well, I thought he raised his hand, so I thought he was go next.
I think that's all he had to
I'll
say.
give it-
I'm confused. Are you trying to speak? We can't hear you if you are.
He put his mic off.
No, not
Yeah,
for
his mic is off.
his mic is off. Huh.
Me?
Yeah. There we go.
Can speak.
Yeah. Wait. Can you? Yeah. Are you trying to say something?
Me?
No.
No, not for the.
Yeah,
No.
I was just trying to say that I guess the counter argument would be that so many of the social and mental disorders that we have is primarily due to society and being around people. Like I want to say like social anxiety or people who I don't want to necessarily say depression, but it kind of borders on that. Like, for example, weight. For so many people, I think weight is such an issue.
It's about perspective.
Hey guys, who has their video on?
What was that?
I think that was, yeah.
Okay.
Yusha, are you driving?
Yes, I'm going to work. I've reached work actually.
Dude, go easy. Be careful.
Man.
I've reached. I don't need to be careful anymore.
Uh,
I'm here already.
fair enough.
So yeah, okay, so I think there's a balance to that. So yes, people with anxiety might feel like comfort in the fact that they don't have to, go to social gatherings, which look, I'll admit, I'm gonna say, so I've been stressed about going to work recently, all right? And literally right before all this crap went down, I told myself, man, I could really do with a couple of weeks off of work, but I really can't afford to do that. And then this happens. And so I'm living it up right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, shit, this is nice. I got my time off. Now I'm about to go insane. Okay. Like I've run out of things. Okay. No, I haven't run out of things to do, but it feels like it. Okay. But we're forced to confront ourselves in isolation. We're forced to confront yourself. You're going to face your inner demons. You're going to face your outer demons. You're going to kind of be stuck with yourself.
Yeah. Ferdinando,
Yeah,
you
this one post I made.
or
Go ahead.
Is it my turn? Oh,
Yeah.
so exciting. Okay. Well, for me, this whole argument that isolation is interesting because it's not like we are really isolated. I mean, look at us right now. We have the technology to reach out to anybody. So it's not like you are really isolated. You still have contact with human beings. You still can like share your ideas. You can still like do challenges and say, "Oh, I'm so good at this" and stuff like that. So I like I don't really understand much of the argument. It seems like what is affecting more than isolation is the fact that you now have time to actually deal with some of the stuff that you haven't been dealing before, and some people are not used to kind of interact with yourself to that extent. And there is a lot of mental and like spiritual training that some people do in other cultures in which you really are isolated without really speaking much, and it actually kind of helps them to be more like stable even emotionally. So I don't know if actually the isolation is what is causing all these issues.
Yeah, and you find examples like that in things like vows of silence and monasteries and stuff like that, where you kind of self-isolate intentionally for the sake of coming to know yourself better with fewer distractions.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, like how you're saying, it's not isolation that's necessarily the bad part. It's how we kind of react to it. If if we have this inner peace, or rather, we have an understanding of ourselves, it's not so difficult. But if we kind of avoid ourselves in the company of others, we avoid our own problems and just always seeking for fun, always seeking pleasure, then I guess we kind of come to this trouble of, oh man, like, who am I? What am I doing with myself? What is this?
Just
So
added me right there
I
with that.
think
What the heck, man?
So I think it's so necessary then that every now and then we do take time to ourselves to kind of just see like who we are and how we are and what we need to do with ourselves to really have fulfillment or happiness or joy or what have you. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I like what you said there for
I think you're exactly
well,
right.
I think what we really miss is facilitated social interaction. So, I mean, even before this pandemic and being on lockdown, we've always had, we've always had the ease of access to interact with people with social media and simply being around other people at school. Now, how real those reactions are, through the internet or even by passing by, now that's kind of gone. We still have the ability to socialize through a facilitated means like social media. That's still a thing. It's now that we can't go to a bar and be surrounded by people, but still be on our phones. I think it's kind of the same thing, but now we're more limited, and of course we're always going to miss what we can't have. So should I think.
Yeah. The grass is always greener kind of thing. I can't help but think of the following. Most times people come to know themselves better by engaging in activities or projects with other people. So it's like, this is why a lot of corporations or I guess even clubs and schools, they have like team building exercises, things you do at camp, stuff like that. It's not just to
Yeah,
make the team,
camp
it's not to
stuff.
make the team run more efficient, but it's like you figure out, you kind of figure out what you're made of and what you're capable of and how you communicate with others. So you learn about yourself with and through others. And so with this kind of isolation, I think it's maybe a different approach or a different access to self-understanding, or maybe a different kind of self-understanding.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of I think your class last year, Charles Taylor idea of the society, where you kind of have to need an understanding of yourself, the understanding of society, and then the world around you. It's just like you require almost like these three different perspectives about your surroundings and who you are. But I'm not sure who went first, Ferdinando or Yusha? Who was first? All right, Ferdinando it is. you, you can unmute.
Yeah, it's okay. I just wanted to tag along because for me has been a very interesting experience. As I mentioned, Mansi, I had so much time in my hand that I pretty much finished my semester early. I did all the assignments and stuff, but what it came after that is a lot of the people who I didn't have time to like communicate with, they start like approaching to me. So we have created like different ways to keep in touch. For example, with Movina, we did like movies nights and stuff like that with different resources. So like we have created different ways to get in touch with each other that weren't the case before. We didn't really needed it, but at the end, we are spending almost, if not more time than when we actually were physical to different activities that were available before, but we didn't like actually engage in them. I even play a game of cards, like Cards Against Humanity on a website. Like everything was digital. It was crazy, but it was fun. Um, and we did with people from different chapters and all over Texas. So that's what I'm feeling like when people are like coming to me, like I feel isolated. And like you do have ways to reach out. So how really like is the isolation really there, or is just your own idea that it is probably a more internal isolation than external? I think like um, you're focusing on being isolated, but there are many other ways for you to not be.
Well, I think maybe for some people it might be a little bit more difficult because they're not always used to just being that person to reach out. I think the luxury of being in person is so much easier, so much more accessible just to go up to someone, have a conversation in class because it's casual. But for someone to actually like reach out online, I think for some people that they might find that difficult. And so that's like the only issue I see with that. I think Yusha, you were next.
Yeah, as building on top of what Ferdinando said, I would just like to add that for many people, it's not even being stuck indoors. Like as we all can see, we can reach out to anyone online, text, call, whatever. But the idea for most people that terrifies them is the fact that they need to be alone or they need to make peace with themselves. I think um, that's what is creating all this havoc and all this, like, oh, I need to be outdoors, I need to be with friends. It's just that they've spent so long fighting themselves on certain things. Um, for example, dressing up a certain way. They dress up a certain way only to impress others or to show others, even though they do not prefer that style of dressing. Or they eat at a place where they don't necessarily like the food, but they go there just to be with friends or impress someone else. So I think that's the mental dilemma that a lot of people are associating with being in. Sure, we're not in isolation, it's just a quarantine, but we're still with family and we can reach out to friends or anyone else online. It may not be easy for them, but it's still a you're not completely alone per se. You still have someone to reach out to in desperate times, but it's just themselves that they're fearing to be left alone with.
Uh, Going off
I
of that,
also think,
oh, go.
Okay, you can go real
oh,
quick.
Who?
Ava, Ava.
okay. I also think it's like the fear of like unknowing when this is going to end. We really don't know. It's expanded and extended, and I think that's a big fear. And isolation isn't that bad. It's more of like, do I have to do this for another month? What about another month? How will I be able to plan? Some people are, they've had plans, now it's canceled or,
Yep.
but, yeah.
Marcus, you've been waiting for a while. Sorry.
You're fine. I just wanted to say, so I think this is an opportunity to examine what a human being is, okay? Because think about other things in isolation, any other animal. Imagine you put a worm in a cage, okay? A worm isn't much of a worm if it's not in the ground, right? It may still be a worm, but it's not doing what a worm does. It's not, it is what it is, but it's not at the same time. You understand? It's a weird
It's
thing.
not
But
being a worm.
stay with
Yeah.
me. But then on another level, you have a human in isolation, okay? Now, there's not a singular thing, okay, say as a worm or other animals that makes us really what we are. So in another sense, we have a thing now with us that we're put into a much smaller space than we normally are to do anything, which is what we talk about freedom. We have the same freedom that we normally do, but just in a more confined space. Say instead of the whole world being our freedom, we have freedom within our apartment now. So we've scaled it down, so it's either going to drive us all crazy or not at all. But I think it's interesting because I don't know. I think it proves that there is not just one thing that makes us human. That we exist in any sort of space. We exist in all. We could be in a coffin for our whole life and or whatever. You're still a human being in that coffin. Oh, okay, that doesn't make much sense. But damn it, the whole point is that you still have your freedom, okay? Because there's a thing there that you still have that they can't take away from you. It might feel like it's taken away from you because you can't go places, but it's really not. You know, I can throw this cap that I have in my hand against the wall right now. I just did it. You see that? That's freedom that the government can't take away from me. All right? Never let them convince you otherwise. I yield.
But here's the question, Marcus. If someone who is in isolation, what you're arguing here kind of seems like, well, if they're in isolation, they're not talking to others, they're being less human. Is that what you think? Or
No, the whole point was that we're just the same human as we are on the outside because we can do everything we can on the inside as we can on the outside, which is use our freedom. it might be still in a limited sense, but the very fact is that's the only thing that can absolutely make us human is the freedom. That's what I was getting to, is that there's no other singular act that defines us as a human other than our nature of freedom. Like everyone, puts a shoe on in the morning, or some of us do, but that doesn't mean it's a human thing, like necessarily. Like some humans out there don't put on shoes. Some people don't do their hair. Some people live without hair, et cetera, et cetera. There's a billion different things. So that's the only concrete thing. And I only stick with that so much because it really impacted me in manager's class, the talk of freedom, because it really messed with my head. Let me tell you that.
So then, do you think and
That's
that's
what I'm here.
it really proves how necessary socialization is then, because that's how we kind of refine ourselves, how we kind of, like how you were saying, test ourselves.
Structures our freedom. Exactly. It's a way to structure our freedom.
And also it
Now we're-
extends our use of our freedoms, because we're tested in different ways that we wouldn't have imagined or wouldn't have been capable of to do on our own.
Yeah. And we've lost like what we're used to using our freedom for. And we're like, well, shit, what am I supposed to do now? I'm not going to work. I'm not like going to school. What am I supposed to do with myself? It's like, what do I use this freedom for? Besides sit around and eat chips and watch TV, damn it.
Like, for example, Jack right now is using his freedom to go to sleep.
He's asleep with his eyes open, okay?
Can I
He's
chime
still
in here
here.
for?
Go ahead,
Hello?
Jack.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, kind of building on Marcus's point and kind of what y'all are saying, just again, to kind of pose like the devil's advocate response, it seems like, this emphasis on freedom, if you want to speak sort of existentially, which was kind of the framework of that class, this existential freedom, it's about the freedom to choose your values, because there are no, pre-established values. But what does that really mean? It means, for somebody like Heidegger or these philosophical psychologists, it means choosing your projects. It means being able to choose not just what you think is important, but how you go about achieving that thing, how you go about manifesting that value. That's where I think our freedom is now being limited. I think a lot of people, made plans, as somebody said, made projects that in a way is helping them decide for themselves who they are. You use your freedom to become the person that you want to become by being free to go out and actually make those projects happen. And so I think what ends up happening now is, with all of these possibilities cut off, or they're sort of put on pause for who knows how long, you're going to get people who are going to suffer from some, low-key identity crisis, because their identity is wrapped up in their projects. And now, they can do their projects in ways that are kind of like sort of slapdash and haphazard, due to the nature to having to adapt so quickly. But, it's not exactly the same. Or people rise to the top. They rise to the challenge. So I mean, I think it can kind of cut both ways there.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yusha, did you want to say something? I hope I said that right. By the way, I don't know pronunciation. Bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going back to when I had my class with Professor Mansi, and in that we studied Marxism, and I could not stop thinking of this quote from that class and I quote, "Man is in essence totality of social relations." So if a man is of total social relations, then our freedom is not necessarily in question here, because we still have the freedom to go out, but then we also suffer the consequences. It's not that our freedom is being infringed upon. It's just our thinking of what our contribution to the quarantine or isolation can do good for others. Because in my housing community, I have a lot of elderly people who are like 65 and plus, who are more prone to coronavirus. So it's my freedom if I want to go out or not, but then I also have to suffer the consequences, as Dallas County has announced that those who are outside of their home without any purpose or outside of certain times, they will be fined, and then they could be jailed up to 150 days. So right now, I'm exercising my freedom. My freedom is not being limited. It's just our social perception of what we think we can do to help or aid others. It's, to me, this entire aspect has nothing to do with freedom. Yes, Marcus?
Hey, Marcus.
Fuck. All right. Sorry, I'm back. I forgot I was muted.
Marcus?
Okay.
That's a good
What?
point.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, going off of that, we had these projects before the quarantine happened. Just like you were saying, we normally had that use of freedom, and then we're now that we don't have that, we're forced to try to do the same thing that we wanted to do, but just in an entirely different way. And like we had these plans, like say, I was going to save up money, I was going to I was going to do this, I was going to do that, but now, how can I still achieve what I wanted to do, but just now not really doing what I wanted to do? You know, you're forced to change and adjust. You still value probably the same things, or maybe you don't anymore. But then
Mm.
now your values mean a lot more, I think, in this limited space that you have than it did in your bigger world, because now it affects you more than it did. I don't know personally, because I think you're going to find if you value vices that you're going to be hitting those vices a lot more than you would have in the regular world. And I can vouch for that. You know, my vices have been full force the past couple weeks. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I ain't perfect is what I'm saying. I know other people ain't perfect out there too. I don't know where I was going with that after I lost that first couple sentences, but there you go. I don't know if that made sense. I just told you I was a bad person, but there you go.
He started remembering devices and he just kind of lost track.
Yeah, I started remembering everything that was wrong with me, and I said, "Oh shit."
Well, I think I see where you're going with it, and yeah, I mean it's a good point you're making. Basically, it's like, well, now that your actual sort of concrete possibilities for activities are really actually limited, things maybe begin to loom a lot larger, because now again, kind of going back to a point Serena and Orlando were making earlier, it's like, well, now you have to sort of examine them, because after a while you're going to get bored of watching TV and eating potato chips. I know it might not seem like it now, but give it time, you will.
Exactly.
And it's just like, yeah.
Don't test me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's the human condition to adapt and survive. It's going to be a struggle for a while, but I mean, for humans, we'll be fine.
That's
I'll
such a.
find a way to keep eating potato chips. Trust me.
I like that optimism.
I was gonna say, like, maybe that's not necessarily a question of freedom what makes us human, but like how we adapt to things, like how we figure to get around things, you know. Like how Fernando was saying earlier, you know, we are not able to talk to people person to person, but we're able to go ahead and use social media for that.
Yeah.
You know, that's an adaptation that we have come to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I that's true. It's just, I'll tell you right now, man, it's from like my perspective, it's very odd to just lecture to an empty apartment. Like lecturing is supposed to be like a communal thing. You know, it's like doing stand-up comedy to an empty audience, or acting in front of nobody. It's just, it changes the activity. It changes the endeavor somewhat. It's really kind of bizarre. Just experiencing what that's like, and it's the same, but it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, I will say this though, going back to something we were saying before, I've instituted discussion forums for all my classes, and now I'm hearing from more students than I ever had up to this point in the semester, because students who aren't chiming in class are now chiming in on the discussion boards, maybe because they feel more comfortable doing it that way, and it's great.
Or
I
because
mean,
you made it mandatory for grades, because if we don't do it, we're going to fail your class.
damn right I did. And now this is, you know, I think it's been wonderful. I mean, I'm hearing from everybody, so that's been kind of nice. So again, yeah, it cuts both ways, and now I'm free to interact with more students, because students are putting themselves out there, maybe because they feel more comfortable, because there's less pressure to do so in their home than, you know, in like a classroom environment. So all of these things are relevant. I mean, I would encourage all of y'all, based, you know, the topic being perception, you know, how has this isolation, social distancing, shifted your perception of anything, especially the things that you value or the things that you're used to doing? I think it'd be kind of an interesting exercise.
Fernando was next, I think.
Okay. Yes. I didn't know.
I can't see the chat.
I know. Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Wait,
Okay.
yeah, you should. Oh, yeah, Fernando. Yeah.
Okay. Something also that kind of like gave me a maybe a little bit of different sensation than maybe most of the people who are from here. I have access, for example, how people are dealing with these issues outside United States. And I'm gonna mention just like in a personal like experience, my country. Okay, so I don't know how many of you know me, but I'm from Venezuela. And my country before all this issue was already having a difficult moment. Uh, food was already short and all that. But since it came the coronavirus to the country, now they don't even have oil to transport themselves, which is kind of hilarious because we are the main source of oil in the world and we don't have oil for ourselves. Uh, so people are literally without being able to drive a car. They have the electricity is being rationalized, so they have electricity for maybe like 2 hours or so. Water is also being rationalized.
Oh my God.
So imagine trying to do what we're doing right now, but you can't really do it. You can go outside without a mask, and even if you go outside, the prices are so high that you can't afford even the food outside. And the only people who are being able to drive are military because they are the only one who have access to oil. So if I compare to whatever is happening in my country to here, it kind of feels like we are in our own suffering less compared to what people are dealing actually over there. So it's also a matter of perspective. So in my case, for example, I feel less um, trouble with what I'm living right now because I know for a fact that it can be so much worse. And it's almost for me for a vacation this that it could be if I am in my country right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great perspective. And, I think that's also kind of a helpful way to look at it in terms of, on the one hand, everybody's kind of going through it, generally speaking, but on the other hand, again, some people are enduring much greater hardships than others, and not just the degrees to which Americans are experiencing it, but all people. And yeah, so you can kind of, in a way, sort of interconnects us without losing sight of, key differences that might somehow provide us with some solace or comfort a little bit. Not to say that you should feel comfort at the suffering of others, but again, it's a dose of perspective, perhaps.
Agreed. Yusha, what's up?
This goes next, yeah.
Two things. First, on what Ferdinando said, initially I was born in a third world country too, but that's where my parents are from. I never lived there. And it's the same thing over there. Everything's being rationed. There's like an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of electricity to every person. No clean running water, no food. I mean, even the NGOs, the non-government organizations, they're trying to help out so much, but there's so much they can do. And I think this is the kind of perspective that gives us as humans um, a clearer viewpoint on what freedoms we have exactly and how much we have, to be honest. And building off of that, from what Professor Manzi said, that his students are participating more on discussion boards as compared to being in class, is they've always had discussion, they've always had the freedom to discuss, to talk, to discuss whatever they're studying. But some people prefer to be nonverbal, and it's still a form of communication. But this has been, I guess, this has been easier for those, because for the longest time I used to be an introvert, and I did not speak to people at all. I didn't have any friends or anything. But now I realize that
Oh,
this
those
can
are
be
the days.
this.
Joking.
Professor Manzi, I will ruin your class. But anyways, I used to be an introvert, and after looking at both sides, being an extrovert and an introverted person, I realized that I've always had the same amount of freedoms, no matter if I've been sick, if I've been traveling, if I've been in a third world country. It doesn't matter, because as a human being, you always have certain freedoms and rights which no one can take from you, and those have been enlisted in the American Constitution, just as a reminder. So it doesn't really matter if we're in quarantine, if we're in public, but it's just the means, or it's just the equipment that we use to express that freedom. Like us, we're using our voices, we're using this phone or laptop or this software or whatever. We're utilizing these resources to exercise our freedom of speech, of peaceful gathering. But as mentioned by Professor Manzi, when it comes to online discussion boards for his classes, for them, they're utilizing their writing resources or their expertise in writing as compared to verbal communication. So it's really a matter of aspect, I think. And the the thing that relates us all is that it doesn't really matter if we're stuck indoors or not. We're still creatures of um, social needs. I mean, that in itself is our vice. That, oh, we need to be social. I need to be around people. I need to
Yeah.
see at least one person walking, because this is the very fear that is enlisted into us when we're watching. I don't know how many of you have seen Will Smith's movie I Am Legend, where in the end he
Fantastic.
kills his dog, and the very factor that's that settles fear in our hearts is that when he's walking down New York and there's not a single soul to be seen around, and that's terrifying. So that only shows how we as humans are creatures of being social, of being around people. It doesn't matter if you're extrovert, introvert,
Mm.
disabled, whatever you are, you still need to be around people. At least, like, you may not realize it, but you don't feel it until something like this comes upon you, and god forbid the internet goes down. So at that point you're truly isolated, like you're completely alone 100%.
Yeah, there's a great Twilight Zone episode about a man. It's a very famous episode. I promise you, if you look it up, you'll be able to find it there. Where it's like, where did everybody go? Maybe that's the name of the episode. But this man literally wakes up in a town and completely abandoned people, and he goes like crazy. It's insane, but it's so cool. So you can go ahead.
B, I think you were next.
I just wanted
That
to
is a
mention
great
that.
episode.
See, thank
Hello.
you. Yeah, y'all check it out if you can find it.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
I need to find out what episode it is.
Okay, B.
Go ahead.
You guys were talking about third world country, and I'm from India, and it's the exact opposite. Instead of um, the rationalizing resources, our prime minister made this thing where you're supposed to light up a candle. It's called 9 p.m. It's called 9 p.m. 9 minute. It's a hashtag, and you're supposed to light up your candles and turn all of your electricity on at 9 p.m. for 9 minutes to supposedly let Corona go out of India. It's crazy, and there's this thing where they encourage people to drink cow pee
What?
because it's cow pee, and
Yeah, I saw it.
they encourage them because they said that that's the medicine to coronavirus. It's crazy. I am so upset because I am Indian, and I see
What I
people do this, and
what
I'm
I
like,
understood is that since cow is so holy in India,
it
that they
is it
believe that
is
the urine of the cow is able to purge inside of you enough to do not allow coronavirus to get into your system.
Also, am I too loud? I'm sorry,
No,
I'm not sure how
you're
loud.
No,
fine.
you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I wonder. Imagine if, like,
Good.
about those untouched countries. Like, imagine what do they even know what's happening? Like, those really tribe people who stay in tribes, like in the deep jungle. Like, what? They don't even know about this.
The thing is that um they strongly believe that coronavirus won't reach them because the Indian genes or whatever is just
Mhm.
so strong for them to be affected by it. And that's the reason why people don't listen to anyone, and they, even though we have a 14-day isolation, people still go out and they get beaten by police. But I saw this one interview where a reporter was asking a person why despite being beaten by the police, why does he still choose to go outside and not follow the rules? And it shows how well, his response was that, well, I have a family and they're hungry, they haven't eaten, and if I don't work, I don't get the money. So no matter how much beating I get, I have to work for my family. I considered suicide, but then I realized that would be selfish on my part because I have kids who are depending on me. So yeah, and then we have a prime minister who wants to switch on all the electricity and play with everything and just not rationalize resources. I think this is more of a rant than an actual philosophical talk, but whatever. I'm sorry.
It's wild though. No, it's good having different perspectives like that. It helps, put us in our place.
I think that kind of gives us a connection here of experience and perception. Depending on our experiences, that kind of frames our perception of the world. So for some people who haven't kind of experienced or know of suffering on that scale for third world countries, they kind of see their situation and say, "Oh man, I'm so miserable. This is the worst I've ever been." But people who know of others and understand that there's other people that have it worse, they're like, "Well, honestly, this isn't that bad." So it's kind of telling of how important it really is to kind of just be informed and realize that there's other people out there as well going
And
through harsher things.
and on top of that, everyone from different areas of the world are reacting in entirely different ways, as we've just found out. Because everyone around the globe is obviously a different person because you're in a different spot on the globe, meaning you've experienced different things in the world. So that experience is built into them, and now they're going to react entirely differently. All this input information into all of us is the same. We're all saying the same. Actually, we're not even seeing the same things. People in China are probably seeing a lot different news than we are right now. I'm pretty sure we all think that. I mean, all these countries, everyone's receiving their own information and they're having to input it into themselves in a different way. So everyone's reacting in a different way. Some people are still going out thinking that, oh, I'll never catch corona. And then some people are hoarding toilet paper. As you can see, their priorities are very, I don't understand that either. Hoarding toilet paper. Can we discuss that in a philosophical point? Why on earth is someone, you believe you're about to die. You believe the world's about to end. Hoard toilet paper. It's like we really love that room, that bathroom. We just really love it. And that's our favorite spot. And if we can't have our toilet paper to do our proper business, we can't have our favorite spot.
It was an interesting fixation. I think because people identify toilet paper with civilized living.
Really?
And so,
Yeah, right.
well, yeah, so I think the fear is that we won't be able to live as civilized. And so that's why they say
about toilet paper shortage. I think that's why there was that kind of mass hysteria.
The end of the era.
Go ahead, Yusha.
For me personally, I prefer running water because I come from Middle East. In Saudi Arabia specifically, we have bidets, which we call Muslim shower. And you wash yourself instead of wiping it. So that personally gives me a better sense of cleanliness and a better sense of hygiene. So I really could not understand
so funny,
why so many people are hoarding toilet paper like you have running water.
Because everywhere else in the world, bidet is so popular, but then here in America, it's not as popular. It's so funny.
We're uncivilized heathens over here with no bidets.
And I heard that the orders for bidets went through the roof after this whole shit went down. So I think that's
that's what I heard too.
Yeah.
That's so fun. The shit got down.
I might just have to invest in one. You know what I'm saying?
Well, listen, hang on. We're drifting a little bit. I want to say something about what B was saying. I mean, do you feel as though that exhibition really of solidarity is worth maybe the practical waste, so to speak, of resources? But if it's worth it, then it's not a waste. So maybe the idea was to sort of, again, I don't really know what to say about the cow piss, but in terms of the 9 p.m. thing, I mean, it's almost like a nationwide kind of like a flash mob sort of thing where everybody sort of links together at the same time. There's something beautiful about that in a crisis. Or do you think it doesn't justify the fact that, again, some people are going without, and it almost seems like flaunting a little, almost like a luxury, like you can afford. I mean, what do you think?
It feels more of a luxury than actual solidarity in my point, because majority of Indians, especially my family in India, majority really are very poor and they can't afford this. It's more into politics than actual solidarity. It's a lot of, I have no words. I'm just really upset with what's going on. It's not solidarity. It isn't. A lot of Indians as well, it's just to show that you are with the prime minister. It's basically that. It's not about solidarity. It's just you taking sides with the prime minister.
Okay. Yeah, that's completely. It's more rhetoric then. Yeah.
Political in a sense. Ferdinando, you're next.
Ooh, okay. So no, well, for me, like, well, I am agree with Mubina. Uh, like, just because an act seems to be beautiful, but if you are not actually doing something about it, like, how beautiful is it really? Like, let's say, like, maybe the President Trump says, you know what? I feel like if we all have flowers at 8 o'clock and we all like raise it to the sun, like we maybe like can heal the coronavirus. I mean, yeah, everybody's gonna be doing something beautiful, but we're not really doing something, you know. So how really this act provides to us as a society, as even as a human being? If anything, it kind of promote a kind of idea that is, you know, useless, because then we're gonna be debating why are we doing this, and other
Yeah,
people, well,
maybe
this
it's
actually.
yeah.
But couldn't
Maybe
you
it's
just
not
say,
about actually doing something. It's about saving face. I mean, like especially when you're having like a pandemic and like a mass groupthink and a mass panic, you want to establish some kind of control or some kind of feeling of control in these people. Because I mean, the bottom line is everyone's panicking because of the loss of control, and so you facilitate these fake, like, you know, let's all pray, or, you know, every day at 9, you know, do the candles, because you're trying to put some kind of reassurance and control, and at least if someone has,
Well, yeah, I
if
think
people have some kind of normalcy back in
yeah,
their lives,
routine.
it helps. It's a band-aid for
yeah, I
a
agree.
bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just think it's like this. Again, people want routine. I think you make a good point there about wanting to have some semblance of control. I mean, could you not replace the lighting of the candles with praying? I mean, it's
It's
a
the same
beautiful
thing. That's
thing.
what I thought.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily do anything per se, arguably, but you do it to make yourself feel like you have some sense of control over the
That you
grander.
helped in some way.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's so interesting right now is that, yeah, everybody's upset that they've lost freedom, lost control, but at the same time, everybody wants somebody else to control the situation. We want
Exactly.
scientists to solve the problem, to come up with a vaccine. We're not doing it. We want an adult to step in and fix things while we sit and complain that we have a curfew. I mean, it's not real. Yeah.
You're very right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone got anything else to add? I think this has been a great discussion.
Yeah, we got 9 minutes left. If anybody, we can start doing like maybe
Last thoughts?
closing. Yeah, last thoughts. Go around the whole meeting here. Let
Yeah,
everybody.
who wants to start with that?
How about we start from the bottom right?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Bottom right.
He hasn't said anything the whole thing.
All right, Jack. Give us your thoughts on all this.
What is bottom right? How do you?
I mean, you're at the grid view. So if you go to the grid
Oh.
view,
I don't know. Like, I am in my phone, so I don't have.
I don't know if on the phone you have
I
the
trust you
capability, but
guys.
on the
I
laptop
trust
you
you.
have the ability to have
I
it as
didn't
a grid
think about
view.
that. I didn't think about the fact people probably didn't have grid view. Okay, Jack.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jack.
no.
Yeah, on the phone it's just windows like divided in 4 people.
Yeah,
Okay.
We don't have
that's
a
how
grid view.
mine is on the phone too.
Okay.
That's what I have. Yeah.
We'll let you know who's next. All right, Jack, go ahead.
Okay, so because it is my turn, all I can say is, I mean, it's not the first time I've been home for like a month. I mean, I've been this way, especially during summer breaks. When I was in high school and junior high, so I'm already used to this. Serena said, or was it Serena, or I don't know who it was. It's like they don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to get pushed forward for another month. Yeah, so that's that kind of the if factor. Because at the end of the day, yes, we can socialize and everything, but I think the most important thing that a lot of us are missing is kind of that physical human interaction. The thing that kind of makes every social movement kind of more memorable. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing that I'm kind of been complaining about.
Awesome.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
Nancy, you're next.
Go ahead, Manzi.
Oh, I'm next.
Yes, sir.
Okay, listen, well, okay, kind of piggybacking on what Jack just said, and going back to the topic of perception, I mean, part of that plays into, again, one's prior experiences. So I was focusing before with the existential talk about, future-oriented things, but, your past, your facticity, so to speak, plays a role as well. I mean, case in point for me, look, I was raised, I'm only child, raised by a single mom who worked all day, every day. So I'm used to this. like I kind of was raised in isolation. This isn't that big of a stretch for me. Not to say that I don't obviously feel the pain of being, kind of isolated from people in ways that Jack was describing, but it hasn't been that. I already have kind of a routine of sorts that I was sort of raised on, like a kind of templates that I could kind of go back to. But I think about people who, maybe don't feel as isolated as we think. Like I've had students reach out to me about things like, I'm like a family of 6 and we're all in like, this tiny, living area and everybody's taking classes, including my parents. And, we're all online and they're just like, I can't get away from my family. That's the problem. It's like there's too much sort of connection with people that I care about. So I think there's that side of it as well, where you begin to kind of grow. This is what I mean by cabin fever. You kind of grow sick of your surroundings rather than maybe inspired by them. And then the deeper question becomes, well, is that a choice you make or not? That's my hot take so far.
It's a good hot take.
Thank you.
Yeah, Yusha, I believe, is up next.
Not much to say. I mean, it's final thoughts, I guess, would be that I guess this is another thing that brings us all together as a society, because facing this issue or pandemic is one way or another bringing us closer, whether we're stuck indoors with our siblings who we don't like at all, or we're connecting with people that we haven't spoken to in a while. Like my parents, they have found their friends from their high schools, and they've been brought together once again, only because now people have more time and because they're quote unquote stuck indoors. So one way or another, we will always progress as a society, whether we're facing something as bad as a world war, or something as moderate as a pandemic, or something as regular as our daily lives. So it's just dependent on perception and how big of an issue you create it to be.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there. I like that. All right.
Yeah, I like that.
B, I think you were next.
I'm next.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well, from this isolation, I've realized how people are we all are craving social interaction nowadays, more than usual. And I've noticed how in Instagram they have a lot of challenges going on, and people whom I wouldn't expect to participate in those challenges have started joining them because, hey, we don't have anything to do and we're sad and lonely and we need social interaction. So that's what they did.
Yeah, I'm 65 years old, so I'm seeing all of the lists on Facebook that are coming out now, just by people that I didn't even know were still alive. Kind of interesting.
As for as for isolation, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so this is not new for me as well. Well, but then, okay, I forgot. I was supposed to say something, but I forgot. Professor Manti told us an example about him going to his friend's house for a sleepover, and then they were having pizza, and Professor Manti was like, "We have pizza for dinner?" And that's me currently, because I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and I have lived my life practically at home almost 7 days a week, and that was fine for me. But then I came here in the United States, and I'm surrounded by so many people, and I'm always outside. And now that I'm here at home, it feels very weird, and I'm supposed to be used to this because I grew up in Saudi Arabia. This is my life, but I'm just not happy with it anymore because I have lived a life which is beyond my house.
Yeah.
No, so that's interesting. Yeah, even though you're used to it, it doesn't necessarily mean you prefer it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I do apologize for cutting in, but from what B said, living in Saudi Arabia and getting used to the isolation, it's really not that. I grew up there and I was outside the house more than I was inside the house. I only came home to sleep, to be honest. I was either playing soccer, it's called in America. I grew up playing that on the streets, and I was barely home at any given time. So I guess these are two very different.
I have a question. Like, is it the same for girls? Like,
it's not the same for girls.
It is
opportunities
because
that
my
you.
sisters grew up doing that exactly the same way that I did. It's a false pretense that people create of Saudi Arabia that, oh, women are not allowed to do anything and blah blah blah.
It's not
My
that we're not
sisters used to
allowed.
drive
It's
there.
just
My
not
sisters used to play
encouraged.
out with me. We used to go out to the malls. We did everything the same as we do here. So it's just dependent on person to person, I guess.
Well, women are treated the same way all around the world, so.
Because I remember Isra telling me that she wasn't allowed to go outside. It's not that we're not allowed. It's just not encouraged, basically.
It's all right.
Yeah, Serena, you're next.
Oh, I'm next. All right. I guess I can relate to Jack and Manzi because I too am a only child raised by a single mom, and I spent all of my summers in my room playing Xbox. So isolation isn't a huge thing for me. But I guess the biggest thing I have to say is that perception is reality. So, your perception is a lot different from everyone else's, and that's why I believe everyone in every country is handling this pandemic completely differently. And I guess, I don't know what else to say besides that. And that, if, to handle this isolation, just, keep in mind that you are in control of your own perceptions. And while you are limited to what you can do, you're not, completely bereft of everything.
Well said.
Yeah, something.
All right, Marcus.
That was not who I had next. I had Ferdinando next. I'm right next to you on the top left. I'm in the middle top is to me. That's who I see up top.
I think it sounds like you want to have the last word, Marcus.
No, Orlando to me has the last word. I promise you. No, Orlando has the last word in my view. But I'll go next if you want.
It's fine. We could do Ferdinando next.
Okay.
I mean, potato, tomato. I don't know. I have to take your words on it. I have a phone, so for me, it's a little bit. And sometimes. Well, just pretty much the same. For me, I guess in my perception of a challenge right now is that most people have a lot of more time. So I usually try to help, and they come to me 24/7. So there are a couple of days in which I'm like, okay, I have this time. I'm gonna do my homework. And all of a sudden, boom, there is a call there, or there's like can you help me here? So it kind of the structure it really differs because the struggle maybe is not from the inside of me organizing my time. Is that I have to be like mindful that everyone right now has like maybe like the short time of responding is shorter. Like sometimes you're used to maybe like send an email and that this person lasts like 5 hours and then like 1 minute. It's like, oh my God. So you have to be more on your toes even though you're sitting. And it's kind of like, okay, it changed the dynamic. I'm enjoying it way too much, maybe. Yeah, but I mean, if anything, I can do anything. I can just, as she said, I can play Xbox or whatever. But it is coming with different pros and cons, and it's for me as someone who likes to learn from every experience, it comes very fun. So now, Marcus, sorry, let's go with the other person, and so you can have the last one.
I guess Eva's next.
Yeah, I was right.
No, I'm second to last to me. Orlando's last.
Yeah, so I mean, nothing much. Isolation for me is all right. I have noticed just because I'm an artist that my style has changed a lot further to like different. I'm also working a lot faster than usual. But really I'm not used to it. Yeah, it's okay so far. It's more just like handling outside business. That can be a bit tricky because I sell my art and I also want to show in galleries that sadly closed. So I have to deal with that. But really, it's more of just sticking to it. Yeah.
Hey, Ava, can I ask you just a quick question? I want to ask you this. Do you feel as though you're becoming like more prolific? Like, you said you're working fast. Are you producing more works now because of this? So you could say that you've kind of been inspired on some level.
For sure. It's not really like fun and bright, although people look at it and be like, oh, that's really, you know, happy, but it's fast. I'm doing more figurative work, so I don't know, it's definitely changed. It's gotten me more motivated.
That's awesome.
Usually I have time, but motivation just doesn't. It comes in waves. So
absolutely, I can relate to that.
Interesting. Yeah. I love that talk of how your style has changed too, because I can totally see that with the isolation affecting you. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah. All right, so Samantha is next.
Hi, so I'm subbing in for Samantha because she's in class, but she's
what?
What the? Who is this?
It's her sister. So she
What's
said
she got to say then?
she just has the fear. She thinks that there's a fear of the isolation, is that the fear of the unknown. So we're just scared that this is going to be our new future.
Yeah, again, that idea of, look, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? We don't really know, and that kind of changes things.
And the other thing is, like, we're having to sit at home and decide, like, who are we and what we are, and like,
yes,
that's the scariest part for most people.
Exactly.
Who is speaking on Samantha's behalf? Are you a student?
It was her sister, she said, I believe.
Oh, sister. Okay.
Yeah, I go to SMU.
Oh, right on.
Fair enough.
Congratulations.
Well said.
Yeah, I think a lot of that fear is because we do derive a lot of who we are from our social interactions.
Exactly.
And, you know, we pick up a lot of our traits from other people.
But at the same time, are we based on other people's perception of who we are, or are we who we are, kind of? So
it all depends on the person and your perception. I mean, some people are really comfortable in their own skin and they know who they are when they're alone and even around other people. Then there are other people who, you know, facilitate their perception and who they are through being around others. So
this isolation is going to tell us exactly who we are. Let's just all say that.
Exactly.
Let's just say I also don't like where it's going. All right, shit, I got to change some stuff. All right. That was very well said, Samantha. Anything else you or your sister wanted to add?
Oh, Samantha said, can you respond to her email, Professor Manzi?
You hear that? Check your email.
Yeah, Manzi.
Good luck with that.
Moving right along. Yeah, I will. Tell her I will.
All right,
I'm glad you see her even in proxy.
All right, so I guess I'm next. I think it's like now, okay, instead of being able to, technically you can still throw a ball with someone outside, right? But I want to take it a little deep. Imagine you couldn't throw another ball like outside, like play catch with another person, right? You're not forced to play catch with yourself. Okay, you were used to using your freedom on others and for others, but now you have to use it almost entirely for yourself. Okay, that's another big point for me. I think, like, with your day, in your normal day when you're not quarantined, you during your day do things that aren't entirely for yourself. You go to work, example. You are now working and then you're doing things. And then after that, you do another thing, and then you do another thing. But now we're entirely by ourselves. Not entirely, yeah, we have family around us, okay? But it's like you have your entire day now to use your entire day's worth of freedom entirely on yourself. So now it's all on yourself about how your day goes. You can either feel productive and read a book or clean your apartment, or you can, play video games, etc. throughout the whole day. Like, I've found myself many times. But there's no longer things to distract us from the outside world. Our freedom is now left with, what we are left now is with just ourselves and our freedom. That's it. And who we spend our apartment with, really. But that's, I think, the biggest thing for me. And it's what hits home for me most, because I like distracting myself, okay? I like distracting myself. And when I can't distract myself, I'm like, well, shit. Now I gotta confront myself. I confront myself a lot, okay? Another time is another ordeal, okay? It's damaging, but also recuperating at the same time. But that's where it hurts. And I think everyone's gonna have to go through that at some point during this time where, you're gonna look at what you're doing and go, is this what I need or want or should be doing with my time or freedom, etc.? Because man, I could do so many cool things right now. I could read so many great books in front of me. I got a bookshelf right in front of me. I need to pick at least, there's 7 at least books up now that I haven't read. I haven't read barely anything on this break. What am I doing? I don't know. So obviously I need to, get myself together. So that I think that is the biggest thing to take possibly from this. And you're gonna find yourself even after this quarantine is over, that you're gonna have the free time just like you did today, but then you're gonna view that free time differently than you did before. That's another thing. You're gonna view that free time that you had to yourself differently than you did before. You're like, I had all this free time to myself before. I didn't like it. I got too much of it. So now you're gonna use it more wisely.
I think you're being real optimistic here. I wonder if, again, it's not going to happen where maybe things go back to the way they were, and then we kind of forget all about it, and we begin to take our values for granted again.
Well, Dan, you're probably right, all right? But I got to look at the glass half full sometimes.
That's true. I think. Well, yeah, I'll leave it alone.
I want us to look at this as an opportunity to change, okay? Because I know the world has a chance to do it, but are we capable of spontaneous change is the question. Is the world capable of spontaneous change?
Well,
actually there is a good movie about it.
Oh, the platform, exactly.
The platform.
Oh exactly. That's why I got that line from it.
It's a good movie. I was so yeah, you should watch it.
The platform on Netflix.
Never heard of it.
Professor Manchi, I think I had the title for one of the film series. I think I did. I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, you did recommend that. Yeah.
And it's
so I've heard.
It perfectly depicts the levels of society and how we treat each other in a physical society. I mean, it was gruesome to the mind, not in like any gore, or there wasn't much blood.
It's just
but it was gruesome and really toll-taking to the mind, because my mom and both my sisters, extra and uter, they stopped watching it after a while. They said, I cannot take it. And then in the end, they came to me and said, what did you understand out of it? I told them that it's the society. It's literally a depiction of the very society that we live in. So it's an amazing movie to watch, especially for philosophy, and if you're trying to understand how different people perceive society from each, I guess, tax bracket or level of.
What happens is
I hardly ever recommend movies, and I would recommend that to humans.
What's the movie's name again? Can you
put it in the chat? It's called The Platform.
The Platform.
Yeah.
It's not for you to watch.
It's not for you to watch.
You can take it. Well, it's not that bad.
It is gruesome. It is very graphic, and it is.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So I mean, you're gonna love the message, but you're gonna feel it.
Yeah, people get murdered.
Can I just add? Well, let me just add this: that it's ironic. Marcus began by talking about how we can't really completely wrap ourselves in escapism anymore, because again. We can't wrap ourselves up in other people's drama because nobody really has drama because nothing's really happening. You can't escape it to things like sports, like they delayed the Major League Baseball season. So, you know what I mean? And yet, so that was kind of like his point. And now we're talking about cool movies on Netflix.
Because that's exactly.
We're talking about escaping.
Like the interesting part is that the movie is also it's like a room where you cannot go anywhere.
Yeah, so that's what's so funny about it.
Very physical what we're doing right now.
Exactly. They're forced to confront themselves and figure out a solution to the problem that seems impossible.
What's the cast? Who's in it?
Oh, it's a foreign film.
It's a Spanish movie. It's from Spain.
I think it's
a fantastic movie, though.
Into English, but it's very well dubbed, and the subtitles are on point.
I wish they would have done just the English sub auto just a bit differently, because I found that the subtitles and then the English audio didn't line up as much as I would like them to at some point.
Yes.
Well, Marcus, if you're complaining, since we're in quarantine, learn how to speak Spanish and your problem is solved.
I know there's a way to say that shit in Spanish and English in the exact same way, all right? It's not that difficult. Because the subtitles say one thing, but then the English speakers will say something different, is what I mean.
Then learn Spanish and stop complaining.
Better.
So is the problem of isolation.
This has
Anyway.
been the Cinema Savants Club at Richland College. Thank you for tuning in.
This was the second half of Philosophy Club, which is the movie club. You know.
Yeah, we can all just recommend our favorite movies to each other
It's
if you're
like
dying
the
to
movie
watch something.
Wednesdays. But
We already
solo.
warm up with the subject. Now we can go into the deep stuff. You know.
Well, hang on, Orlando.
Wait,
hasn't
Ferdinando,
spoken.
do you
I
remember
know Orlando's still next. We
So
got really off topic right before him.
This
So yeah.
concludes our meeting. That's gonna be it.
No, give me your last thoughts.
Ferdinando, do you remember the Netflix party we had for the Avengers movies?
Yeah.
I
Maybe we
hate
can
you,
watch
Yusha.
that, the platform. I know, B, I hate myself too. But not really.
No,
love
I
myself
hate
too
you
much.
so much.
We can watch the platform on a Netflix party and maybe invite them like for
Oh,
philosophy
I
club or
forgot that you
something.
can watch Netflix all together now. Shit.
Yeah, I've read
Yeah,
those things
it's
too.
just an extension in Google Chrome, and everyone is like you're watching a movie with everyone. Like if someone click pause, everyone has the pause. Like
Hey,
everyone
y'all,
is
just hold on a second. I gotta take a piss. I'll be right back.
everyone is just texting, talking. It's like you're in the same movie.
Play. That's what it's like. It's like that.
That would be
All right.
awesome.
Anyway, Orlando, we're well off topic. Go ahead, wrap us up.
Oh
That
no.
that actually can be an activity for us, like to watch that movie. I'm down to watch it again.
Let's
I
do
don't
it.
know,
When we get everyone
I'm really
paused, we
busy
post
right
it.
now.
Yeah, awesome. I say we do it. Let's look into that.
I don't know. I'm down. Yeah, definitely. All right, Orlando, give us your final thoughts on isolation. And
I mean, you guys kind of honestly left me with nothing to say, but to be completely honest,
Sorry.
no, you guys are good. You guys did an amazing job. Honestly, I'm so glad everybody here joined. You guys had so many nice things to say, and it's awesome. But I mean, for me, in my experience, I'm kind of used to isolation for the most part. Throughout my life, I've always kind of been introverted in some way, so I've always had to kind of see the brighter side of things. I kind of learned that in order to maintain living with myself or living on my own for the most part, that I kind of had to see things on the brighter side. I had to see things more optimistically. Perception to some extent seems to be by choice. We want to see things on a negative side. We want to see it on a positive side. It really depends on us. And so how we enjoy our experiences and how we feel when we are experiencing things, that can be heavily affected by our perception. So if we're going through something that's bad or something that might seem harmful to us, if we are able to kind of find some kind of some sense of home, some sense of peace going through that, I've found that's like the remedy for anything. So that's kind of my take.
Well said.
Yeah, great sentiment. I second that.
Yep.
That's very well said. I can't remember who said this before me, but it was along the lines that we perceive things either in what's it called, either a true positive or a true negative. And I'm experiencing that without even realizing up until this point when Orlando had mentioned it, is that I barely used to go to the gym because I have a high metabolism, so I don't need to go to the gym. But now that you've said it, and I'm not allowed to go to the gym, I'm pushing up almost like 300 push-ups a day, 350 push-ups a day, and that's only to keep, I guess that's only to keep myself sane.
I'm doing
because I don't
351.
know what else
Yeah,
to do.
cool.
This will make you feel like more shit. All right. You want to know what I had for breakfast today? Beer. All right.
It's
That was
that
a joke.
sense
That was
of
yesterday, not
control.
today.
You
That was
want
yesterday.
you need that daily hobby. You need that daily routine so that you're not going absolutely crazy. I get it.
Yeah, in some ways, life.
That's true, and I'm only doing this to keep myself sane. Like biologically, I don't need to do this. All the exercises, running, and push-ups and everything. But to me, I feel like not being around people and not meeting my friends, because what happened was 1 week we had for the spring break, and the next 2 weeks up until this point, we suddenly jumped up into a quarantine. So it's been almost like 2 months I haven't seen any one of my friends in person.
Oh wow!
And that's really been eating at me, and I really felt like I was going insane up until one point.
Yusha, can I ask you? Can I ask you, were your friends tried to avoid you before the quarantine?
Yes. I mean, ask Mubina. Ask what I did.
I'm just.
No, in all fairness, I am still even pissed at Yusha right now.
I love you, Yusha, so forget that.
I am very pissed at him.
Because this is the deal. Like we were doing a marathon for Mubina of Marvel movies, okay? So she
Say
hasn't
what
seen
you
any
may.
movies, so we were doing a marathon just for her.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
thing is that the last couple movies are kind of harsh. So it's like, okay, B, we're gonna do this Netflix party, so we watch it with you, and you're not alone. And we were in the last movie, and
The
you
end
should
game.
just say the whole ending. Yeah, and we were in the middle of the movie, and we were like, we did all this activity for movie, and that's in the middle of the movie. I think
All right,
for
I
me
don't know if
that's
I can
great.
forgive that. That's tough.
Yes, say what you may about me, but
That's
I'm
hilarious.
a
I'm sorry.
creature who preserves himself first. I do what I find peace in first before caring about anyone else.
Jeez.
So, hey, it is the way it is. I've made my peace
Stop
with
it with
it.
your excuses. You're mean, Yusha. You're very mean.
I know I'm mean. I live up to it.
Oh, well, this was
He
fantastic.
didn't
Y'all. This
even
really
he
made my
didn't
day.
even stay for the movie. He just popped in the group chat, told the spoiler, and then left.
I respect that. That's hilarious.
It's not hilarious. That was
So Justin,
Iron Man is
top
my
of your
favorite
life
character.
to watch these movies, but then at the
We
11th hour,
were
he goes, "This is
doing
what
that
happens at
for
the end."
like 5 days, 4 days. So he popped up in the last moment, So that's why I'm upset.
Yeah, that's a troll. He trolled me.
Wait, but B, how did you not see that on Instagram? That's like nothing but
No,
me.
the thing is that, see, I am not a Marvel fan, so I don't follow anything Marvel related on Instagram, on Facebook, on anything. I don't know
I
anything.
feel
I
you.
didn't even
I'm with you.
I don't even know who Thor was. I know Captain America because he's very famous. I know Iron Man because they're very famous. But I don't know who Thor was. I don't know the rest of the people. I don't know anything.
Thor's
Okay, and
more
then
famous
I
than Captain
call
America.
that
Let me just say
bull.
that.
Like when Endgame came up, everyone in my entire class, which I goddamn hated, was nonstop talking about Iron Man dying. Like you could not go to the
Really?
internet without 5 seconds saying, "Oh my God, Tony Stark died."
For me, I remember when Endgame got released, everyone was talking about it, and I don't know anything. I didn't even know it was Marvel. I was just, oh yeah, Endgame. I thought it was some football, whatever. And I thought it was some sport because I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And somebody told me, oh, it's Marvel. I'm like, oh, okay, it's Marvel. I don't know anything about it, and I did not have any friends during that semester because all everyone talked about was Endgame, and I don't know anything about Endgame.
Oh my gosh.
Iron Man should have died at the very beginning of the first movie.
Why?
I mean, it doesn't make sense that his body would survive that kind of fall. Like he should have been a wrap. I don't want to be that guy, but I'm just saying.
He's right.
Should we wrap up here? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, this was fantastic, y'all. Thanks for making my day. This was so great. Honestly.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Yeah, again,
So
thank you.
moral of the story, Yusha is an ass, and he
Yeah.
lives up to it.
All right.
Never watch a movie with Yusha is the end game.
Don't
that
watch
we,
a movie
Yes,
with Yusha.
please do not.
Oh, you think Jusha's bad? Wait till you
B,
meet
I really
me.
don't care, to be
Oh no!
honest.
Never watch a movie with Jack either.
Do we have a topic? Do you want to do this again weekly? So is this going to
Yeah,
be the
I'm
thing?
down.
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Done
I'm
for
down.
weekly as well.
I guess we can do a topic suggestion on here if you guys want to.
Yeah.
Not here. Maybe in WhatsApp because once you
Yeah.
leave, it's gone.
Yeah, the chats will be gone.
So make a WhatsApp or whatever. I'll download it.
Yeah, we can just
WhatsApp,
record
GroupMe.
ourselves saying.
I invited you on there
Remind.
already, Marcus. The heck?
I don't
Wait,
have a WhatsApp, damn it. All right, let me make it.
wait, aren't you nerds supposed to have like a group me or something?
We do. It's
There's
so.
a group
Zach,
me?
you're
I
part of the
deleted
nerds.
GroupMe.
Well, this is recording, right? So I guess we could always go back and look.
Yeah.
You can just,
I mean, all right.
you can just
Write
say
it
it.
down, that's also.
Or I mean, what are any of y'all doing? Just write it down.
I
I'm
got
really
a pen and a
busy.
board.
Hey,
I'm
at
too
work,
busy to
okay?
be writing down stuff. I'm too busy. I have too much things to do.
I'm down for the same time next week.
Okay. Anybody have any suggestions?
That's okay. That works.
I can't think of anything right
I'm
now.
fine with this time as well.
Let's think of some topics though, and then we'll send it through some chats.
Senior Presidente, do you have a suggestion?
I do have some actually, but let me
Good.
hold on.
We're all ears.
I'm gonna pull my Google Docs real quick. I know it's exactly what you're doing.
No, I have a Word document of this, but
Oh, I'm sorry. A Word document, not a Word doc. Fucking Google Docs.
don't wait for me.
Pulling out his diary.
Yeah, my diary. That's right.
That's what I said to my pediatrician when he asked me if I wanted a lollipop. Word, doc.
Ha 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 ha.
My God.
Not bad.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, here's an interesting one. I think Serena suggested it. It was, is conformity necessary for happiness?
That's a good one. Yeah.
They tell you it's necessary. That's the whole point.
I always like conformity, especially now with this whole pandemic.
Yeah, nothing. There's nothing to conform to.
Well, there's been.
Well,
forced
I mean,
conformity
everyone
of behavior.
conforming to the whole buying out toilet paper fiasco.
Oh, okay, you're right there as far as like panic buying. Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Unless you're the
That'll be
Italians,
a
which
good topic.
gracefully there are rational people that know how to do things in a quarantine, and I praise them for that.
Oh yeah, there's that's so beautiful.
Why are Americans retarded? I don't know.
Popular culture. That's why.
Oh god. Okay.
So do we want to do? Yeah, keep in mind we're gonna throw this up on YouTube. Keep that in mind, folks.
So I have.
Yes,
Nice.
go ahead.
We have to upper level then.
Is there a meaning? Is there a meaning to life? How about that one?
This is kind of like your go-to philosophy question, like when you're starting.
Yeah, right.
Well, look, we can
That's a
still
tough
nail
one.
the hell out of it. Let me say that.
And I mean, like, are the answers are going to be might be a little negative, and everyone might be a Debbie Downer right now.
No. I am definitely the.
There's no meaning to life. You should die.
No, just because I would. No, I'm ready to argue this. All right, put it down. We're doing that.
You're ready to argue everything.
Yes. That's why God made me.
Oh god. Okay, so which? Okay, I have one more. Pro-choice versus pro-life.
Nope. We're going with the last one.
I'm pretty sure, given the circumstances, a lot of people won't be able to actually do that because they're gonna be stuck in quarantine.
We're not gonna debate that over Zoom.
Do what?
Oh, that,
No, but
what better moment
people
then?
might not be
I'm just gonna
going
say
into
that when it comes to
reasons,
uploading to
but-
YouTube, there's gonna be a lot of editing.
But condom sales have risen. I mean, it's ridiculous. Just as much as toilet paper.
Hey, I'll tell you what. If you guys want to see more embarrassing shit of me on the internet, look up Naaman News on YouTube. There is my high school news channel where I was a news anchor, junior year and senior year. Daily news segment.
That sounds hilarious.
If you dig like 3 years deep, 2017 and 2016, you will find some entertainment. I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. You know, I love embarrassing myself. Here you go. Naaman News.
As the managing editor for the Richmond Chronicle, I suggest you not do that because I'm gonna have to report you to my advisors, and I don't want to do that.
Hey, they would love it too. All right, everyone's gonna love it. They'll check it out.
So what do you think? Do you want to hold a vote, or are we going
Okay.
with conformity?
Okay, so
I like the conformity because I think you're
everybody
getting the
raise
meaning
their
of life
hand?
anyway.
Can everybody
That was
raise their
nice.
hands on here?
Except you
Okay.
people.
Ha ha ha. Ha ha
Oh,
ha.
we can
Orlando.
actually raise our hands. There's this option where you go. I don't know about laptop, but for your phone, there's this option where you can go to more and then just raise
Oh,
raise
reactions?
hands. Yeah, just
Yeah, it's
there's
on
an
React.
option called
Orlando
more.
can see it because he's the admin.
We
Yeah,
could just say I or like nay.
Yeah.
I can see it, and you guys are just gonna have to trust me.
Oh man, I don't know about that.
How do I take these off?
Okay, yeah. So it looks like it works. So we can vote. So the first one was, is conformity necessary for happiness? Who wants that one?
I.
Okay. Are you guys doing the?
Can I show something very quick?
I'm not on film, Orlando. What do you want me to do? Hey, you found it! You found me! I love it! Oh, you found it. That's great. Yo, there's some gold episodes in there where we completely break down in front of the camera because we're cracking up so much.
Mwah.
That was so much
beginning.
That was so much fun, man.
Continue.
Yo, because every morning, let me tell you, every morning we had a fresh script because every morning is a different announcement. So then we're reading this big ass whiteboard with all these different things that we're supposed to say about, oh, you need to meet Miss McGowan in room 302. Do you know how many room 302s I had to memorize? A lot. Like 6 segments. That shit was tough. That shit was fun. Y'all check it out. Maybe you'll be a news anchor yourself someday.
Okay. So I need everybody to use the actual like raise your hand.
Damn it, I'm not on camera, Orlando. What do you want me to do?
Look, you
I was
just
physically raise my
You have
hand.
an option that says raise hand. You are not like
You don't
Yeah,
need
click
to
click on the more.
Basically
All right,
raising your
I have
hand.
an idea. I have an
No,
idea. Orlando says the subject, and then each and every one of us in order just say aye or nay.
Wow, Jack is so good at this.
Okay, how about how is that possible though? Because
Someone promote him.
How's he gonna tell who? Yeah, it's gonna be everybody at once.
Okay, it's like
You
this.
call the name. You call the
B.
name. Like
Yeah, you go B. Do you want yay or nay?
How about you just
Yay. I
Everybody
raised my hand.
How about you just put it in
And
the
then Jack would, Marcus would just say, yeah.
Who knew the voting would be the hardest part of this?
can we go ahead
The
and
reason we have a
can we
raised
go
hand
ahead
is so
and
we don't
just
have to do
mention
this
it
on
in the
this.
chat?
Okay,
We have the conversations easier than this.
I'll
All
just
right, I have an idea. Marcus, you say you raise your hand, yes or no?
Okay.
Can we go ahead and leave it in the
Or
chat?
can
I
we
mean,
just
it's
leave it in
not
the
that
chat? Yeah.
yeah, just leave it in the chat.
Wow.
Don't give up, Orlando.
It's easier that way, man. You don't even play.
Orlando, could you read the options first? And each of us can leave a number, one representing conformity, two representing whatever the second was, and third representing whatever the third.
Okay, so
I
I'll
just
just,
wrote.
yeah,
I
that's
just wrote
probably the best way
conformity.
to do it. I'll go ahead and repeat them, and then I'll just give them the numbers.
How many
So
times can you vote?
Okay.
only once, man.
3
We'll
times.
be able to tell. We'll be able to tell this time. So, okay.
True.
Is conformity necessary for happiness? Who wants that one? Push number 1. Text them. Ooh, ooh.
Oh, Jesus.
Ooh, that's
Or
Okay, 4. Is there a purpose? I mean, is there a meaning for life? Push 2 for that. Text 2 for that. Ooh, harsh for that one. Pro-choice,
Hard luck.
pro-life. Text 2 for text 3 for that.
I think I have to agree with Marcus. It's better if pro-choice, pro-life would be in class than
Thank you.
discussed in Zoom.
Well, that's because
Yeah, I agree.
we don't even
Conformity won already.
to stick for that topic until next semester. Like we don't even like, hey guys, remember that one topic from that semester ago? Oh, pro-life, first one.
Orlando, I think conformity just won. Like
Yeah.
literally
Just one.
I didn't even vote.
6 people just won. That's like more than half.
Yeah, it's a landslide.
Conformity isn't necessary for happiness. That is going to be the topic. I'm going to write it down.
Sounds good. Next week, 3:30.
All right, next week I'm not showing up.
All right. Damn you, Jack.
This is fun, y'all.
No, I'm
Hope
just
everybody
kidding,
do
Jack.
well.
Yeah, before everybody
Yeah, this
leaves,
was great.
everybody check out Anthropology Club tomorrow. What time is it, Jack? Go ahead, plug your thing in, my dude.
It's gonna be tomorrow from 4 to 5. Yeah, it's gonna be in Zoom. So
Yo, what's up?
yeah,
I don't have a link to it, so how can I show up?
You got Texas, bro.
yeah. Orlando has
And maybe
access to the link,
resource-
so he can just send it to y'all.
I bet.
I
Everybody,
might be
put in
resourceful,
that
but I
note, have
can't just come up with the link.
Ugh, people are annoying.
Jack's like, I have responsibility. Fuck.
It's quite a pitch, Jack. Quite a pitch.
You can stay on. Yeah. What was the topic again, Jack?
Literally the same thing we're talking about.
Hey, that's bad.
What was it? No, it
Let's
wasn't.
go.
You just texted.
That was me. I texted you a couple times.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that's a dope hat, dude. I like it.
Thank you.
All right, I send the link if someone wants to copy it.
Okay.
Hey, all right, bet.
Let's see.
Yeah, he sent it to me. Hold on.
And then Serena, how about you guys? Are you Psych Club doing anything?
I don't think so. Dr. Jones is way too busy. I might want to do a small thing if
There's
anyone
the
wants
link.
to sit and talk about psychology, but yeah, we could talk about anything. I usually like social psychology and obviously forensics. So if you guys want to delve into like cults and serial killers and
You know,
cults,
you don't want to talk to me about that. I'll go off.
I like it. Yeah.
Well,
I like that
since-
stuff. So
Well, since there's not gonna be an advisor present, theoretically you could just make a topic about whatever.
well, I mean, I am the president of psychology, so I guess I could just talk about whatever I wanted.
Yeah, yeah, just make the link and then just.
That's true.
These Zoom meetings are pretty easy to set up, and they're pretty easy, to get.
Oh, also, I
Yeah.
have to, if you're gonna make a Zoom meeting an instant, like 1 hour before the meeting, you only have 45 minutes limit.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think it was like, given the circumstance, they were gonna extend it. They're gonna be more lenient because theoretically we just went over 40 minute.
Yeah, we did.
We've had like an hour and a half.
I think what it is
Yeah.
is 45 minutes for 6 participants, but we're way over 40 minutes for sure. So
Yeah, because we're better.
All
We
right.
talk about random shit like Netflix.
But if you make the Zoom link 24, I believe a day before the meeting, you could have like more than 45 minutes. I don't think there's a limit for the meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
But
new to
this was
Zoom,
fun.
so I'll just mess around with it, see what I can do.
This was fun. I'm gonna log off now. Peace, y'all. Thanks so much
Alright.
for joining. This was so much fun.
Finally.
Thanks,
This.
everyone. Yeah, it was-
Stop the recording.
Yeah. All right.
All right, I'll catch y'all later.
All right.
Later, Mark.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to stop the recording.